Hello and welcome to my intermediate video milestone number 1 for educational technology. My name is Darian Bailey and I am building out a rubber Goose debugger, which is a debugging tool to help novice programmers learn how to debug and help novice programmers solve coding problems. In this presentation, I'm going to be making a number of claims. You can see the attached document for citations by slide number that support those claims. In this presentation, I'll have 4 parts. In the first part, my introduction, I will introduce the problem I'm trying to solve and then how I'm planning to solve it, which is, of course, as mentioned before, with the chatbot. In my second part, I'm going to go over how the chatbot works. And in my third part, I'm going to have a short demo that shows a conversation I had with the chatbot, as well as going into the logic behind why the chatbot responded the way it did. And number 4, I'm going to go over plans for the future and ask for specific suggestions. So first of all, $312 billion is the amount that was estimated to be paid in wages for programmers to debug programs. And this was in 2013. Since 2013, the software industry has more than doubled, and this problem has only gotten bigger. Because since 2013, there are also more novice programmers. Boot camps have become more of a thing, and India and China have introduced more programmers to the global programming base. And in addition to these novice programmers, we're still suffering from poor education around debugging. And while there have been some interesting tools created in the last 9 years, there's nothing, those tools haven't seen wide adoption. So the debugging problem is only getting better, only getting bigger. And my solution to this is to make a tool that should have better adoption than kind of static tools, and should also help teach people using it. And that's a chatbot that is embedded with patterns to help, patterns that novice programmers can use to debug issues. So while building out this chatbot, I have a planned stack of a Flask server running a Python app with NLTK and sklearn as libraries to process input. And then this Flask server will store conversations in a SQLite database and communicate with a front end with just simple JavaScript and HTML through an AJAX pipeline. This would normally have some performance concerns as Python is single-threaded and language processing is often very difficult. But I programmed it in such a way that the language processing is actually quite simple. It's a lot of just checking whether an individual word is in a certain phrase, and it's basically an expert system with some tokenization and n-grams, lemmatization, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's all fairly lightweight. And here we can see the flowchart that underlies the logic in the chatbot. There's obviously a lot more to it than this kind of simplified flowchart. There are a lot more. The flowchart itself, if I were to build out what the chatbot is currently operating on, would have maybe 8 times the number of lines and self-refer to itself. But basically, this is the starting point. First, it's going to ask if you need help fixing your code. If you do, then it's going to ask if you're able to reproduce the problem. Then it'll check if you can reproduce the problem quickly. And it'll ask if you know what caused it and if you know how to fix the cause. If you ever answer no, it'll give you suggestions and have separate conversations on how to get you to a yes. Because this is the way that most programmers can solve something efficiently. And also, in addition to this flowchart, the chatbot has some randomly programmed conversational phrases, as well as checking when you need to call for a human for help, or you're trying to have a conversation that's not related to coding with the chatbot, and the chatbot will put a stop to that. So once you know how to fix the cause, it'll simply ask, is there a chance the fix will break anything? And if the answer is false, it'll finish. If the answer is true, it'll suggest some regression testing. And next we can see it in action. So here is a conversation I had with the chatbot to solve a problem that I was struggling with. You can see the chatbot's prompts and questions next to the 3 arrows, and my responses without the 3 arrows. So first of all, it opens with an opening phrase. It has a corpus of 5 opening phrases that it randomly selects. In this case, it says, "Hi, do you have broken code that needs fixing?" I responded with, "Yeah, I'm struggling with a SQL alchemy issue." And then it goes to the next box pretty cleanly in the flowchart and asks if I'm able to reproduce the problem. In this case, I wasn't able to reproduce the problem because my issue was I was running SQL alchemy, in this case a Python library, on a server that had user data. So the chatbot then went into its bag of solutions and randomly pulled out this one around problem reproduction. And it told me I don't need to reproduce all parts of the original bug. Can you strip it down to its essential parts and test those? And I typed in, yeah, I can make it into its own program. So then I went ahead and did that and asked me if I'm able to reproduce the core problem. I responded, yep. Are you able to reproduce the problem quickly? Yeah, because I put it in its own file. Then it asked me, after reproducing and checking, do you think you know the cause? And I responded, not yet. Not yet is actually not in the corpus of understandable statements of the chatbot. Well, not yet. I'm going to add it in after this, after today. So it responded with one of the misunderstanding phrases, of which there are 5, which is I don't understand. This one's not particularly useful. The other ones tell you to restate or what the chatbot can understand. I type in not yet again, and it actually responds with the same one, which is 1 in 5 chance. So then I respond no, and it tells me to continue hypothesis testing and let me know when you found something. At this point I respond okay, tested some hypotheses, and then it comes back and says, after reproducing and checking, do you think you know the cause? And at this point, it was a problem with one of my filters, which a filter is a SQL alchemy object. And then it responds, I'm on it. I'm on it is actually a phrase of encouragement, of which there are also 5, and it randomly selected this. And then it responds in normal conversational flow, asking me if I know how to fix the cause. And I say, yep. And in this case, it actually randomly selected the phrase again, I'm on it, which I'm probably going to disable after this presentation. And then it asks me about regression testing, saying, do you think it'll break anything else? And I say no. And then it responds with the finish statement. So that's a basic demo, and also the 2 things that I'm going to improve as a result of this conversation. So in this way, you can not only see the chatbot in action, but also see my method for improvement. In this case, I'm adding I don't understand to the corpus of things, I'm adding not yet to the corpus of things it doesn't understand, and I'm also going to make sure that phrases of encouragement can't happen twice. So I'm going to do both of those the same phrase of encouragement can't happen twice. So at this point, I'm going to present my next steps. Obviously, I want more than just myself to plan out data, so I'm first going to put it online. That's going to happen around next week. Then I'm going to have my first user tests, where I'm also going to record these conversations. Of course, there will be a disclaimer on the website that all conversations are recorded. And then finally, I'm going to use the not only the suggestions of people, but also the chatbot data itself to continually improve it. And this is just going to be kind of an agile improvement of this chatbot over time. and hopefully all friction will disappear eventually. So here are some prompts for suggestions that, of course, feel free to provide your own. First of all, I want to know if my plan makes sense. Does my plan for improvement make sense? Does the flow chart make sense? Then any kind of off-the-wall ideas of how I make my chatbot more compelling and more useful. And then one major change and one minor change you would make to my plan. And of course, anything else you think of. Anyway, thanks so much for taking the time to give me your feedback and also sit through this presentation. And then, of course, credits to SlidesGo, FlatIcon, and FreePick, which I recommend for all of your Google